Malaysia releases an interim report on the missing flight MH370. Anti-parallel trading rallies in Shungshui and Tumun. And Obama joins ralliers to mark the 50th anniversary of the Selma March.
Good evening. Today is the first anniversary of the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. But an interim report on the incident released by Malaysian authorities today yielded no new clues about what happened to the missing plane. The only interesting fact was that the battery of a locator beacon had expired a year before the plane's last flight.
It's been a year since Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 vanished en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. But authorities appear none the wiser after an exhaustive search which began in the South China Sea and is now in the Indian Ocean. In China, where so many of the passengers were from, relatives of those on board marked the anniversary with a demand that the mystery of MH370 be solved so that they can know for sure what happened to their loved ones. Today, Malaysian authorities released a detailed report on what the investigation has uncovered so far. One curious anomaly was that the battery of an underwater locator beacon had expired more than a year before the Boeing 777 vanished. But the report also pointed out that the battery of another locator beacon in the cockpit was working. Other than that, the nearly 600-page report revealed nothing out of the ordinary in what should have been a routine flight. It provided an account of the crew's lives and professional history and went on to give details of the aircraft's service record and operational history, all of which showed nothing unusual. Investigators stressed the objective was not to blame anyone, but rather come up with recommendations to prevent a repeat of the tragedy.
In the months ahead, the investigation team will need to analyze, to draw conclusions and safety recommendations based on the factual information that have been gathered. In addition to the analysis and the conclusion phase of the investigation, steps taken will also include further validation of the factual information on emergence of new evidence.
The search for MH370 in the southern Indian Ocean has been handled by private contractors, with support from Malaysia, China and Australia. The three countries will meet next month to decide how long to continue a search that has so far yielded no physical trace of the aircraft. Today, Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott, along with his Malaysian counterpart Najib Razak, downplayed talk of ending the search. They insisted it would continue and expressed hope the plane would be found.
Here in Hong Kong, anti-parallel trading protesters have gathered in Tuen Mun, where they reportedly shouted insults at people who they thought were mainland grey goods traders. These are live pictures from Tuen Mun. Now, as we can see, there are still a number of police officers standing by to maintain order. Earlier, the protesters expressed their anger at anybody carrying luggage. They also forced the B3X bus headed for Shenzhen to a halt briefly, interrupting traffic there. Police arrived at the scene and the situation was brought under control, with the bus eventually being allowed to continue to its destination. There was also an anti-parallel trading rally earlier today in Shungshui, following a call on the internet. Unlike protests in previous weeks, no major clashes were reported. Owen Feng reports.
Yet another protest against parallel traders, this time in Shungshui. Rallies claim they were sightseeing in the area and were greeted by a heavy police presence outside the East Rail Shungshui station. Officers could be seen checking the ID cards and personal belongings of some protesters. I was taking photos when a number of officers came up to me and asked for my ID, this man says. They also conducted a body search as they suspected I was carrying weapons, he added. Outside the train station, there were minor conflicts between protesters and individuals unhappy with the rally. Officers had to step in to keep things under control. Similar to the anti-parallel trading protests in previous weeks, rallies demanded that the government abolish the multiple entry permit scheme to curb grey goods trading. Parallel traders are a nuisance and they affect Hong Kong people's lives, this woman says. This man says the grey goods trade has pushed up rent in the area and some shops went out of business as a result. Chairman of the Sheung Shui District Rural Committee Hao Chi-keung was also at the scene along with a group of local residents. Hao said they were there to welcome the protesters, while stating that he was not worried there would be conflicts. Police say they had not issued a letter of no objection for the rally this afternoon. Owen Fung, TVB News.
The chairman of the National People's Congress Standing Committee unveiled his work report today. Hong Kong's political reform was one of the topics mentioned. Zhang Dejiang said it's the NPCSC's constitutional responsibility to work towards the implementation of universal suffrage in the SAR's 2017 chief executive election in accordance with the Basic Law. The NPCSC chairman unveiled his work report in Beijing today. Among the topics mentioned was political reform in Hong Kong. Zhang Dejiang said implementing universal suffrage in the 2017 chief executive election is crucial for the city's political development. He added the NPCSC has the constitutional responsibility to make necessary decisions to make this happen. Zhang said this also has important meaning for fully effecting the one country, two systems policy, Hong Kong people administering Hong Kong, a high degree of autonomy and the Basic Law, as well as promoting the gradual development of democracy and the successful implementation of universal suffrage in the SAR. And in the second year in a row, the work report mentioned bribery in connection with the election of delegates to the NPC between December 2012 and January 2013. The incident took place in the city of Hengyang in Hunan province, where 56 lawmakers bribed 518 municipal lawmakers and 68 staff members in return for their backing during elections. The NPCSC chairman stressed such loopholes have to be plugged. To tackle these problems, Zhang said the country must make full use of the standing committees of people's congresses at all levels and tighten oversight over the whole process of electing deputies in order to ensure that elections are carried out honestly. With the public consultation on political reform now over, legislator Frederick Fung is calling for further dialogue between the central government and the Pan-Democrats. He has also vowed not to pocket any reform proposal that's based on the framework set by Beijing last August. That's despite a top Beijing official's remark that if the proposal is vetoed, the reform process will not be started afresh. Shaw Da Silva reports.
After 2 rounds of public consultation, the standoff continues. Pan-Democratic legislator Frederick Fung says any proposal conforming to the framework set by the National People's Congress Standing Committee on August 31st last year will be rejected by his camp. That's despite a recent warning from NPC chairman Zhang Dejiang that if Pan-Democrats turn down the government's universal suffrage proposal, the opportunity for change will not come again. Fung said that the central government has been unwilling to compromise because it doesn't understand the expectations of Hong Kong people. That a fundamental problem, he added, would not be resolved by pocketing the government's proposal for the CE election in 2017 first and hoping for future improvements. The Association for Democracy and People's Livelihood legislators said at this stage there's a need for further dialogue with the central government. And he added that the discussion should not be about each side presenting their uncompromising stance, but instead about finding common ground and possibilities for consensus. Fung said that's what politics is all about, discovering unforeseen possibilities through dialogue. In the meantime, Dang Yok-sing, president of the Legislative Council, has spoken out on the matter, saying that the August 31st decision by the NPC Standing Committee still leaves plenty of room for those running in the 2017 CE election to express and discuss different views. Dang added that this allows for a contested and democratic electoral race. The SAR government is expected to unveil its political reform proposal next month. João da Silva, TVB News.
Turning overseas again, US President Barack Obama and former President George W. Bush joined tens of thousands of others to commemorate a civil rights event that helped change the course of race relations in America. The 1965 march in Selma, Alabama would become known as Bloody Sunday, a day that would galvanize much of the nation against racial inequality. James Aiken reports.
With the shadow of racial tensions continuing to hang over the United States, the country's first African-American president led a ceremonial walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. The bridge itself was named after a Confederate general who was also a Ku Klux Klan leader. And 50 years ago, it was the scene of a march that focused a nation on its own racial oppression. The marchers demanded an end to segregation and discrimination against black voters. But soon, the nation was horrified as armed police beat the demonstrators on the bridge.
In one afternoon, 50 years ago, so much of our turbulent history, the stain of slavery and anguish of civil war, the yoke of segregation and tyranny of Jim Crow, the death of 4 little girls in Birmingham, and the dream of a Baptist preacher. All that history met on this bridge.
Among those in attendance was John Lewis, who was so severely beaten by police that day that he suffered a skull fracture.
17 of us were hospitalized that day. But we never became bitter or hostile. We kept believing that the truth we stood for would have the final say.
Their faith was questioned. Their lives were threatened. Their patriotism challenged. And yet, what could be more American than what happened in this place?
The incident prompted leaders in Washington to pass the Voting Rights Act 5 months later, guaranteeing voting rights for minorities. The anniversary of the march comes as recent police shootings stoked new claims of oppression against minorities. This week, a Justice Department investigation of the Ferguson, Missouri Police Department concluded the city had engaged in practices that discriminated against the city's black population. James Aiken, TVB News.
The Nigerian militant group Boko Haram has pledged allegiance to the Islamic State as it attempts to fight back against an offensive coordinated by Nigeria's government and its regional allies. The group's leader made the pledge overnight, but Nigeria says it has captured more towns from Boko Haram and claims it is in full retreat. Nigerian forces have made gains against the group in 3 northern states. Boko Haram has intensified its attacks in the run-up to the country's presidential election. And still ahead, a call for more English medium special needs school places. Demands for more childcare services on International Women's Day. And in Ukraine, female rebel fighters swap uniforms for evening gowns.
To beating bankruptcy.
For Lockhart Gardner.
Your loyalty has to be with the firm.
More work, more money, more prestige. Every decision.
Am I being replaced?
Why does everything feel like we're pulling teeth here?
Huh.
Has a consequence.
No.
Why? It's the first.
Way over the line.
Of 4 new episodes.
We were good together, weren't we?
Thursday, The Good Wife at 10:40 on Pearl.
A walking tour to Macau will never be the same. You can look further, watch closer, capture more, discover extras. The Step Out, experience Macau's community's walking tour route, taking you on a journey to explore more of Macau's culture, performances, cuisines, and shopping spots. Visit the Macau Government Tourist Office website or grab a walking tour brochure for more details. Experience a whole new Macau.
Should the unfavorable treatment of mainlanders be banned and same-sex relationships be officially recognized? These are the main aspects addressed by the 100,000